Corporate Responsibility Summit was a confluence of business and responsibility, where experts brought together years of experience, knowledge and ideas to propel sustainable growth in India.
Recently, internationally and here, I think it's the corporate responsibility movement that has begun to gain traction. And that is really where we're coming from now, which is to look at how corporates can be better trustees of this earth, or for them to see their role not just as profit-making entities, but as entities that have to create sustainability in and around what they do. And therefore, the whole construct of looking at all stakeholders, looking at the impact they're having on employees, people, their supply chains, and on how good their products are for consumers. So really expanding their worldview of what their role is.
Discussing the criticality of corporate responsibility in the context of India's socio-economic situation was an illustrious panel.
Just as context, the reason why I'm talking about sustainability, not just corporate responsibility, is I think we're moving into a 20 or 30-year period. If I think back at CRY, 33 years, a pretty much equivalent period of time, where systemic change becomes the issue. Not just being nice to people, not just being good, not just about doing philanthropy, but business at the forefront of transformational change. I think over the next 2 or 3 decades, as economies, as countries, we're going to have to break through the sustainability barrier. And most of us, as yet, don't really know how we're going to do that. It's not a bad thing when these waves of public discussion and media coverage fall back, because it's in the downwave periods that the really useful work tends to be done. Regulation in the first wave, voluntary management standards like the Global Reporting Initiative, ISO 14001 and so on during the second downwave. I think we're in a very, very interesting period of our collective history at the moment.
I think at some level business has got to take responsibility as much as government has, or NGOs have, or media for that matter. So all of us in some ways are in it together. Pointing the finger at the government and saying that things aren't working really won't get us anywhere. And that's why I'm saying that I think time's come to try and kind of reboot things all over again, try and see if there is a new framework that we require, a new theory, if you will, to really see what is the role of business in society that will, help us kind of, achieve a win-win relationship, kind of ensure that India is seen as really in some ways a crucible of a new form of capitalism. Because at the end of the day, the market-based model, the capitalist model is the best answer that we have. But how do you make it work for the people? The issue is really around the notion that there is no trade-off between profit and doing good. Yeah? So if you accept that, there are new frameworks that, like shared value, creating shared value, which help you create economic value and social value at the same time. Yeah? So don't look at corporate social responsibility or corporate responsibility as a margin depleting activity. If that were the case, then it won't be sustainable, right? So the issue is that how do you find ways to create economic value while at the same time create social value?
There is not something like about magic wand about corporate social responsibility to deal with fundamental problems with the model of economic growth. I think let us be very clear about that. There needed to be fundamental change in the way we do business, and business cannot be predatory. I think the way it is profit as the primary motive of business, and we also do corporate social responsibility. I think what one needs to do is to plan ahead, work with the people, and address their immediate concerns. Then business will become feasible and profitable to everyone.
When there are sections of society that are left out of growth, so to speak, sections of society that are displaced, be it displacement, be it the pollution or poisoning of their water sources, be it taking away of their livelihood by sheerly just preventing them, for example, from going into forests. And people who suffer first are the little people. It is our children who are dying. And I think that is a situation that we cannot underplay its urgency. And I think we've come to a conclusion as the organization who has worked with children everywhere, and we've worked with multi-stakeholders always, is that unless we all come together, unless we all take action in different ways, this situation is only going to get worse.
Businesses have flourished over the years with the foresight and expertise of visionaries. Let's hear from some luminaries on whether corporate social responsibility can find its place in contemporary business models in our next discussion, the business case for CSR.
We must do well as a business, which means we must drive growth, we must drive innovation, and we must drive efficiency in everything that we do. But it is not just enough to do well. It is crucial that we must find a model to do well while we do good. While we are environmentally friendly through our operations and in a manner such that business has a positive impact on the society in which we operate. And in our context, I've called out two things. How do we help improve livelihoods? That's the biggest issue that we face, which is poverty, and the other aspect of health and well-being that we've got out here. Wanting to do well and doing good is not new. Corporates have understood this, but corporates have tended to keep these two in different buckets. People have said, our business is to run a business and you do well. And I think over a long period of time, there has been this whole notion that we've done well, we've got this responsibility towards society. Let's contribute something through charity, 1%, 2% of our profits, and things of that sort. And we've called that CSR, and we've put monies out there. And if you go back in time, the act of doing well and the act of doing good were mutually exclusive. And it is our belief that it will not be possible for us to do this in this manner, simply because then the whole space of doing good is restricted to a very small part of the money which you earn, which is 1 or 2% of our business. We would like a situation where the totality of the business finds a way to do well and do good. That's when you will have scale, that's when you will have impact, and that's when you will touch the hundreds of millions of people that need this sort of impact going forward.
CSR is not only about philanthropy, even though in a country like India, it should also be about philanthropy. Very much about how an organization can transform disadvantaged sections, especially in a country like India, without compromising shareholder value. It is very much core to business. It can actually enhance shareholder value. We have reduced our output, but actually helped disadvantaged sections. That win-win is what makes it sustainable. To go down that path, the leadership needs to feel for those people first. If the leadership is only shareholder focused, does not have the passion for helping, it's not going to go forward. I hope there are people here who are that kind.
Well, right from the beginning, on the subject of CSR, we've been a very conscientious company. As a Tata company, we actually were born with it, and some of our founding members of the company, inculcated that whole thinking into it. So we recruited a large number of people for our factories from villages and actually trained them. We could have gone and recruited people who were technically qualified, but we chose to do this, and we've ended up making a dramatic difference to some couple of thousand people over the last 20 years.
Having a corporate trustee, having an advisory board, having an independent CEO, has worked very well for us. So I think the platform of setting up a governance structure seems to have been right in the first 6 months' time. The Retail Awards and the Retail Employees Day has actually got very good traction. We have actually printed a book of the best 25 awards. Next year onwards, we want to print a book of 100 awards, the Best Customer Service Excellence Award. Why not this country celebrate customer service excellence out of Indian stories rather than looking at the Walmart, Zara and the Nordstrom stories? And I think there is an opportunity for us to do that.
TRAIN is actually a business with a not-for-profit objective. It's called Trust for Retailers and Retail Associates of India. We did a lot of research. We have 180, 190 hours of in-camera research with us. Eventually, we came out with 3 areas. One is skilling and development. Second was pride and respect. Third was financial security.
Some of my colleagues who are in water management, they tell me that India has got plenty of water. What we don't have is adequate water storage systems. And probably upwards of 80% of the precipitation, the rain precipitation, goes straight into the sea. It's not usable, whatever little that goes into the land. There are some technologies which are being developed. We are trying to look at, can we push a lot more water into the ground? Unfortunately, I would say that we have not taken much great initiative in that. We would like to take that. But what we have done in certain areas, we have done satellite imaging, and we have helped, I think, about 26 villages around Tata Chemicals to store water. So storage of water, recycling of water, purification of water, everywhere the activity is going on.
Corporates are doing their job to enhance or maybe to ensure acceptability without affecting their business as usual. Now again, here you can't have two different scenarios, that corporate is polluting and they do not have wonderful HR policies, but they have a fantastic foundation through which they are pushing the CSR agenda. At the same time, corporates who are not having foundation, so the perception is that they do not have a foundation, so they are not responsible corporate. But if you dig deep, they are doing phenomenally well in terms of the products and services that they offer. Their HR policies, so for women, different kinds of policies, and so you need to see that. So again, from an outsider's perspective, normally we tend to think that why should corporates care? So corporates should care because it's business.
Brands have the power to do good, or do they? Let's find out from our next set of panelists whether brands and corporate responsibility can actually find themselves hand in glove in the next discussion. The impact of corporate responsibility on brands.
The impact of CSR on brands today is very strong, because a lot of the people really look at what the companies are doing and really making a lot of their purchasing decision, actions and so on based on what the company stands for. So a lot of the corporate social responsibility today needs to reflect the brand's value, and the brand's value needs to be reflected into the actions of the company. So it's really all becoming increasingly integrated, and with the new role of the internet, that really becomes increasingly strong dialogue between the consumers and the brand.
What we're seeing today is really a complete new paradigm of CSR and online world that really offers a lot of opportunities and a lot of challenges for companies, for NGOs, and for pretty much anyone that needs to communicate anything.
A lot of these social issues are very complex, and I know the intuitive thing is to find an NGO who you think is clean, is transparent, and look at causes which you think are large issues which are addressing the country, whether it's education, and sort of channelizing your funds to that particular NGO. And the only thing that I would urge you is that you might be wanting to address that issue, but a lot of times the money that you put in and the resource that you put in and the energy you put in is probably not directly going into that cause, because there are so many complex issues in the entire spectrum that take that time to figure out which part of the value chain, or in this case it's not value chain, but which part of the entire life cycle are you really intervening in, and what sort of an impact is it having? Because a lot of corporates will probably pump in free food, but I don't think it really addresses the issue of malnutrition. And this is just an example that I'm taking malnutrition. We find this across any cause that we look at.
The defining thing is the brand must answer what's in it for me. And I believe that a lot of messages which we try so hard to kind of give as a social message can be actually entertainment. People digest a lot in while you're entertaining them. The fundamental, I think, the driving force of change to me is when the brand first must be able to fund whatever message it's trying to give. So therefore it must do well. So the brand must be at the center of it, so that it continues kind of awakening people to a lot of issues and a lot of things. And I think when you use a message, like I keep calling this simple thing as advertising, which is 20% extra free. That is, 100% it sells the brand, and what is the 20% extra free that it can do? Which does the selling of the brand better, and even if it doesn't do it better, as long as it sells the brand, it leaves people with a 20% extra thought of, hey, can this happen? Can this happen? Why is that possible? At least the problem in our country is people don't have the time to even be aware of a lot of issues. It's not that they don't want to do anything about it, it's the thought process hasn't started in a lot of people. So I think brands, while doing what they're supposed to do, can, through the medium of entertainment, awaken a few people in little small ways. This is what I personally believe in while working on brands. And I believe it's quite an interesting way to do because people are interested. It's actually a vehicle of interest to a lot of people. When you kind of take a dig at something that is supposed to be noble and supposed to be something else, and people suddenly awaken to those things. This is my belief.
From a social perspective, I think it just helped us to make sure that what we were doing today would actually contribute to the brand and to the society that we were operating in. So we actually developed this concept of mobile learning centers.
I do believe that the cause always has to be at the forefront of the activity. I think if the cause is not at the forefront, then people will be able to see through it. And hence it's important that you're committed to the cause, that you're sincere about the cause, and then you will have a positive rub off on the brand. But it can't be the other way around. I just think people will see through it.
A sustainable future will demand that both corporate and civil society play their roles in unison. Let's hear what the panel has to say about this in our final discussion. Corporate and civil society's role in building a more sustainable future.
It should be a long-term relationship being showed to you. Say that, you know, in the next 1 year we want to do this, in the next 3 months we want these. This is not possible in a community. It takes time. First of all, you have to build, work in the community, you have to build. We talked a lot about trust this morning. What about building trust in a community? Say in a slum that people come from different parts of the country, you have to build up that trust, then we have to work with them, then we have to bring about the change, and then we have to, so it takes time. And therefore when corporates say that, and then they come and they quickly shift, that, we will work with its organization only for 3 years. Our policy states not more than 2 years. Our policy states, so it's better not to work on these. If you want to really bring about effective change, you must work long enough and come with the idea that things take time to work. You can't work magic or you will get wrong figures being showed to you. The role of corporate and civil society, actually they are being seen as, being at opposite ends of the development continuum. But I feel that, they should come together more and more and enter into strategic partnerships and somehow also bring the government into the fold also. And so it's actually a tripartite should emerge to make it really sustainable, the kind of changes, because these are all long-term systemic changes that we are working on, and it's very, very complex, the set of problems that we are addressing, and no one alone can do it. So each of us, the civil society, the corporates, the government, they bring in their relative strengths.
When Pamela Hartigan and I did a book 4 years ago called The Power of Unreasonable People, we looked at countries around the world that were really active in high potential social enterprise. Brazil and India were the two that just jumped right to the... So you've got strengths in this country which I think are massively powerful in those spaces, just at the time when some very major companies are starting to wake up to the fact, governments aren't going to do this stuff, business is going to have to do it. The bigger the company, the bigger the more powerful the brand, the more global the footprint, the more they're going to have to get involved in this. This can't just be done at CEO level, it's got to be done right the way through the companies.
If I look at India, and I look at a number of 333 million children who need schooling, this is not the job that even civil society can undertake. It is very clear that the accountability for it can only sit with the largest force in this country, which is the government. And a colleague of mine puts it very beautifully. She says, yes, I know that there is a push to say it's a great market thing, let's privatize it, let's make money on it, there's an opportunity. But what she always says is that those last 4 children in that tribal hamlet in Manipur are not going to be reached by a profit-making entity. And we've heard all the corporate leaders who were here today say that very clearly, that we need to see profitability. We need to see what we do being driven by some of those imperatives. And therefore, I think to place the fact that that responsibility needs to be held in a particular place, and us as civil society, whether it be NGOs or it be corporates, actually join into that enterprise.
I think that the corporate social responsibility movement has never been as relevant as it is today, and it's more due to the fact that, people very often assume that corporates has assumed power, but it's also the fact that states have actually reduced their sort of impact on things through financial regulations and stuff like that, which over time has actually created a situation where corporates' ability to produce reality to more and more people, and reality means sort of the world we're going to live in, is increasingly getting more and more tangible, which means that what corporates do from a social responsibility point of view in environmental issues is becoming important to a lot of people. Not just people who are exactly attached to the company, but to a lot of people. So therefore it's the future of the world, actually, is no less than that.
Boiling it down, corporate and civil society will have to play their part for a sustainable future. The CRY Corporate Responsibility Summit pulled together an array of opinions that could suggest that responsibility be co-joined to corporate pursuit.